We all knew she was trouble when she walked in. Hello, good evening and welcome back. So, Prince Harry and Meghan, the saga continues. As the Duchess returns to Canada, as the Queen seeks a solution, I have pity for the royals, both Harry and the Queen. Not at all for Meghan. She knew what she was getting into when she decided to marry into the royal family, and of course after failing at marriage beforehand, given her divorce, and of course then her seniority over Harry, it seems as though she, well, I mean, put simply, is much more of a gold digger, and then figured that was her best shot, and then can't hack it, and wishes to be able to retain the money and the lifestyle, have all the responsibility without the accountability, if you will. And then of course the poor Queen, who's even lived through the Second World War and then the entirety of the Cold War, and her reign has been longer than the vast majority of everyone's lifetime on the earth, let alone within Britain and within the Commonwealth. That everybody who uses her currency has used it their entire life. They're all used to her head being on their coins and on their stamps, and of course be a great change when that happens. But of course for Harry, his mother's death of Diana, I don't care how or why it happened, but nonetheless it has happened. At least we can agree on that. That has clearly weighed heavily on his mind since it happened, and he never seems to have been able to quite get over that, even with Charles marrying Camilla, and then her trying to do her best to replace Diana. That never quite happened. Diana was always an outcast, of course, and Harry seems to have taken up more on that, not least with his ginger hair being quite different from what was expected of the royal family. But nonetheless, as he has always had an issue being born into the royal family, and the golden shackles, if you will, of being in essence a public servant from birth, and it's not something that you choose to get into, and it's not something that you can ever really escape. Given that, he seems to have sided with Meghan Markle, his wife, and stepped away, stepped down from his roles as a senior member of the royal family, the same as Meghan Markle. She has, of course, only been trouble. She has, well, I mean, if you wish to be kind, then she's tried to make the royals more relatable to the young people by making them more hip and trendy, speaking out about issues which don't concern them at all, and she's far too uneducated or well-read on the topics in order to formulate an opinion, and really shouldn't. The Queen is a prime example of what to do, given that she stays out. If there is a political victory, it is solely down to them. She doesn't take any credit, and if there is a political defeat, she says, well, it's solely down to them as well. People have of course been saying, I wish she should really step in over Brexit, and although pretty much everybody knows what her views are, despite having German ancestry, and that changing from Gotha during the First World War, given that London was being blitzed by Gotha aircraft during the times that didn't sit well, she is now quintessentially British, even drinking tea on Christmas Day, having her own Indian blend instead of the rest of the royals. But nonetheless, she stayed out of politics and the affairs, and remains very legal and doesn't challenge the democracy, whereas Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have decided to be more outspoken and not as legal, which is fine as people, but not as royal officials. So it seems to be the right thing for them to do, given that they're not very good at being loyal, and it just so happens that they've done it in a bad way, stepping down without seeming to consult Buckingham Palace and Her Majesty first. So, in the story today, as the saga continues, the Duchess of Sussex has returned to Canada amid ongoing discussions over the future role for her and the Duke of Sussex and the royal family. She and Prince Harry had been in Canada over Christmas with son Archie. It comes as the Queen, the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Cambridge asked staff to find a workable solution after the couple announced they will step back as senior royals. The royal family was said to be hurt at the couple's statement. At least because Meghan Markle, as I say again, knew what she was getting into when she decided to marry Prince Harry. Then after having a child with him, Archie, Harry's son, Archie Harrison, yes, going with the Icelandic route on that one, they decided, oh, well, we can't handle the media spotlight, and she can't handle it. Being a mother, it's such a struggle. So yes, as if you're facing more of a struggle than regular mothers. You have all the financial backing and support that you could possibly want. You've made your money as an actress, so independently as well, so props to you for that. Maybe you've made whole life decisions before that, but nonetheless, you can now support yourself. And then with Harry as well, with the Metropolitan Police constantly providing you security as well, and Prince Charles providing funding, you were pretty much set. Given that as well, that less than a year ago, about 6 months ago, that their home had a £2.4 million renovation, and now they're deciding, we only really want to live in that half a year, given that they want to split their time between the US and the UK. Doesn't seem like they have much financial trouble, even though they wish to be financially independent. And on top of that, seeing as Meghan is really leading the charge in the climate change drama, completely ignoring the Milankovitch cycles of how the sun has an effect on the Earth's temperature, given the Earth's orbit, and then the solar flares, and there are periods of activity or inactivity. And with that in mind, we're expecting it to get colder within the next couple of decades, given that the sun will go into its own little solar recession, if you will, and not be as potent, then we won't have to worry about climate change anyway. But given that they do, they are being even more hypocritical, given that they wish to split their time between the US and the UK, Italy and Canada, of course, as flying is supposed to be one of the worst activities, given that you are going such a long distance. You are emitting so many greenhouse gases. They mainly care about carbon dioxide, but that's not nearly as bad as methane, which is 27 times more potent as a greenhouse gas. I mean, even carbon dioxide, it's 0.04% of the atmosphere. Humans are responsible for 3% of the 0.04%, and now we have lush areas in Africa which haven't had their rainfall change, but have had increased carbon dioxide, which is responsible for 20% more growth into the deserted desert areas. But they will be doing a lot more flying, and that will be closer to the ozone layer, above the areas which restrict the effect of the free radicals damaging the O3 compounds. But with that physics aside, moving on, they say they plan to split the time between the UK and North America while continuing to honour our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth and our patronage. The decision came after many months of reflection and internal discussions. Not external, didn't wish to talk to the royals at all about that, and they've decided to basically just slip away. The manner they're leaving is breathtaking. Their analysis by Johnny Diamond, of course, can't say anything bad about the mixed race American lady, and says those who have always had it in for Meghan put it down to her, but that's a long way from the truth. Harry's royal path has always been hard, mentioning his mother and not growing used to the media, and he has long wanted out, and together with a woman he loves now, apparently, he thinks he's found a way. But the manner of his leaving, their leaving, is breathtaking, suggesting that she has even worse influence. As we've all known from the beginning, the pair were already preparing to launch their own Sussex Royal Charity, which they set up after splitting from the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's foundation in June last year. The Sussex's new charity is expected to be global, linked to Africa and the US rather than domestic. It's not what we want. Maybe the Commonwealth, sure, but not just domestic. Don't need it. Our international aid, foreign aid, is already a problem, given that how the hell do you think you can fix the world if you can't fix your own country? But it will have a commitment to female empowerment, which of course the BBC loves, and everyone with half a brain hates, given that, well, at least the BBC can admit that it is female empowerment and it has nothing to do with equality. It is just supremacy. But they don't like that word, so they won't use it here. It was revealed in December the couple had made an application to trademark their Sussex Royal brand across a string of items including books, calendars, clothing, charitable fundraising, education and social care services. Just in order to big women up some more, as if they don't already have more rights and protections than men, at least across the Western world. But I would say women have been favoured over men forever. Men have been expendable and women have been respected and revered. The most obvious is why men had to go and do the dangerous stuff, and still do, but the risk is no longer so much to life and limb, but it is financial risk, which is why they are the prison inmates and the bin collectors and sewage cleaners, and also the CEOs, because some who take the risk are successful and some who take the risk fail miserably, and that is why they are both ends of the IQ bell curve, if you will, and of the income earners. Feminists don't care about this, of course, because they don't want equality, they just want female empowerment. The BBC actually aptly describes here. Moving on to their financial independence, we've covered that earlier, but they will retain Crockmore Cottage, their £2.4 million renovated home. But I will leave that here. It's just a quick one because I'm going to get too irate over Meghan Markle's impact into the royal family and how she seems to be trying to split it up, even worse than Diana the Outcast did. So I suppose Harry is copying his father, Charles, his supposed father, Charles, as well, by marrying an outcast like he has, several years his senior as well. Nonetheless, all the best to them, and I hope they are able to find their liberty and their freedom, even though they wish to just cause more oppression upon others, given their climate change and female empowerment, as the only way to get equality is not to bring other people up, but just to drag the performers down.